Today, we're going to be laying some groundwork for a truly epic story. Because I received my advanced copy of Wrath of the Everchose, and I'm so excited to get into this next epic chapter of the Soul Wars. It pits Archaon the Everchosen, Grand Marshal of the Apocolypse, versus Catacross, Mortarch of the Necropolis. And if the names and titles of those two figures don't get you pumped with how ridiculously over the top they are, do you even like Warhammer? But before diving headlong into that tale, we need to set the scene. Today we're going to talk about the Eightpoints. The place that is a realm unto itself. It's not tied to any specific wind of magic. It is the home base of Archaon the Everchosen, the most important strategic location in the realms, and the main artery of his power and influence that spreads across everywhere. And I wanted to cover this for some time. I was really excited when Warcry was announced, which takes place here at the Eightpoints, but the lore that comes in the core book for Warcry is pretty limited, as was the description of the locations in some of the Warcry anthology stories, that kind of thing. But finally, this book gives us a history, a setting, and a real feel for what the Eightpoints are like. And since this clash of titans takes place here, we need to explore kind of the area first to set the stage. Because the nature of the realms matters immensely to understanding why these characters want it and why some of these characters in this drama are even involved. Now, I know some people like to look at artwork and that kind of stuff when these videos go on. Unfortunately, there is just not really much artwork at all that has to do with the Eightpoints, so I'm going to be showing just general chaos stuff because it's the home base of all the chaos guys. Sorry about that, it is what it is. If you're new to Age of Sigmar and are having trouble understanding the idea of the realms, I have a playlist in the notes down below covering the broad idea of them, how they work, and a few videos covering some of the other realms in detail in a single playlist. Go check it out and then come right back here. So to tell this tale from the beginning, we're going to hop into our, Age of Sigmar branded DeLorean and go back in time to the Age of Myth. Things are great, society is booming. Civilizations range in size from humble villages to these monolithic achievements in science and technology. The races of the realms generally get along and things are prosperous. At this point in the story, this little realm, this continent-sized realm, is actually called the Eightpoints. And the Eightpoints is a very unique location. It's sort of like a pocket realm, but it's not quite as vast as the other ones. And it's not linked to any of the other ones. Think of it as if we'd mushed a couple continents here on Earth together. It's about that size. So still really massive, but far smaller than any of the main realms like Akshi, Chaman, something like that. Like the other realms, it is loosely disc-shaped and things are very stable in the center and get a bit wonky with magics towards the edges. But what put the Eightpoints on the map, so to speak, as far as its importance, is its Realmgates, an idea we explored in a dedicated video, magical portals that allow travel of vast distances between locations within a realm or realm to realm. Well, at the Eightpoints, they have these 8 very special Realmgates, mind-bending in size. There is one that goes to each of the mortal realms: Gur, Azir, Chaman, Hish, Ulgu, Shyish, and Giran. This is the Eightpoints because it leads to all points on the map. And we talked a little bit in the Karajan Overlord week about the importance of commerce, right? And these developing societies that trade and the sharing of technology and art and ideas will exponentially grow societies. And that's really what this place became. It was the epicenter of trade, philosophy, architecture, thought. The area prospered greatly and these huge cities were erected. Multiple distinct civilizations existed here, and there was just a lot going on. When we talked about those grand civilizations of the past in, say, Akshi, for example, this is the kind of fertile soil that lets things like that happen. Lots of money, lots of power, influence, and technology. Then, the Age of Chaos came, which in all of these videos, when I say that line, it just means things go to garbage. See, the forces of chaos didn't enter through the Eightpoints itself, but across all of the major realms. When the first rumors of this began, the ruling council of the Eightpoints asked Sigmar for aid. They wanted to construct these massive fortifications outside each of the gates, which they simply called All Gates. All gates are gates that lead to the Eightpoints. Colossal doorways to secure the entrance to the Eightpoint, and ensure that all the progress made by this melting pot of minds and cultures wouldn't be lost to the ravages of chaos. And Sigmar agreed and helped them build these huge towers, high walls, gun emplacements. These things were the very height of defensive technology. And for a time, they absolutely worked. And this is something I think it's not really drilled into us when we read something like from the Realmgate Wars, that kind of series that went on, is that these held out for quite a while. The armies of Tzeentch, Slaanesh, Nurgle, and Khorne would assail themselves upon the walls, and waves of mortal and demonic legions broke upon these god-forged shields that were the Allgates. But all of that luck changed when Archaon the Everchosen, Grand Marshal of the Apocolypse is his full title, himself came to the realms. He saw the 4 Chaos Gods failing to breach these defenses, and if you don't know, Archaon is one of the coolest characters ever. He takes the blessing of all 4 Chaos Gods but bows to none of them, and he's looking at this situation and sees how strategically important the Allpoints is. We'll get to why in just a second. He swoops in on his Mount Dorgar and takes command of those armies, because up until now, the Chaos Gods were all trying to take down different Allgates individually, because they don't like working together, right? An army of Khorne was not enough to breach these walls, an army of Nurgle was not enough. But when the Everchosen comes and he wrestles command from the Chaos Gods, saying, no, you listen to me, this is how we get it done. The defenses of the Allgates were just not enough to hold back the combined armies of 4 gods and Archaon's own hordes, and we're gonna see what that fury looks like when we talk about the rest of this story in Wrath of the Everchosen. Now, the book doesn't go into which gate fell first, but it makes it very clear that Archaon took this combined army and crushed every Allgate one by one. And remember, it's not just like a big doorway and a fort exists around each one. It's also that each gate is different in some way and really represents the realm it's from. So it's not just a simple military campaign knocking over a couple castles, it's almost like dominating the nature of each realm itself. My favorite example by far is Gur, where the gate leading to Allpoints is trapped inside the maw of a giant worm, and for lack of a better word, it's basically this think Dune creature with a huge gate stuck in its mouth. So to claim this gate, Archaon constructs these mini forts on the back of these mega-sized crabs, chains the worm to them, and then assigns a number of forts to the forces of each Chaos God. So he had to tame the beast to get the gate to Gur, right? That's what I mean when I say he's wrestling with the realms themselves. Side note, that is a super rad story from the Realmgate Wars. Check out that video in the playlist below. My point is, this is a monumental effort, right? Getting the Chaos armies to work together and then using them to take down a defense that a god themselves erected. And once those doors were open, insanity was let loose upon the Allpoints. Massive civilizations were torn to shreds, armies were annihilated, civilians were killed in the millions or enslaved by the thousand. The progress of lifetimes of research, trade, free thought was crushed under the iron fist of the Everchosen. Now Archaon looked upon all the devastation he had just wrought and was very pleased, right? He claimed this land as his own domain, seeing it as a fitting trophy for being the one who took it. Because none of the other Chaos Gods could do it, but he could. And this is where things go from bad to way worse for the denizens of the realms, because of its centralized location with steady access to each realm, this place became initially the lifeblood of trade and commerce. But now it has become the ultimate staging ground for the forces of chaos to send out their armies. And so, just like poison entering the bloodstream, Archaon, his domination of the Allpoints, allowed the uncontrolled flow of these huge chaos armies in every single realm. And I have to iterate again how big these specific realm gates are. Hundreds of men can stand shoulder to shoulder and walk through them, so this truly is an untamed flood of chaos troops. And it can spread quickly and relatively easily. And that's really the value of the Allpoints from a strategic point of view. It allows Archaon to have his iron grip and reach that is unparalleled. It also sets up the first act of Sigmar's quest to recapture the realms, as the Realmgate War series follows the forces of Order attempting to take important realm gates and ultimately close all of the All Gates that lead to and from this place, just to end Archaon's utter control and kind of limit him a little bit. At the end of that series, Order, the forces of Order combined, closed 2 of them, Akshi and Giran, and they also set loose the worm with the gate to Gur, so no one controls that one. I did a full series on the Realmgate Wars, you can check it out down below. But that's all the very high level stuff that kind of like is background information. Let's get a little bit more specific about the place itself and its current state, because Archaon came in and he changed some things, right? He walked in and was like, this place is under new management. First, he went and renamed the location itself from Eightpoints to the Eightpoints in honor of the 8-pointed Chaos Star, so that's what we're going to be calling it from now on going forward in the series. And just like you would do if you conquered anything, the first order of business is always to solidify control. So all those broken All Gates, the fortifications on the other side that we came through, the ones that were built by a god, they were rebuilt, restructured, and repurposed to now serve the Dark Gods. Now any Order army that wants to retake this place has to have at minimum the same skill of army leadership as Archaon. They have to do what he did. Okay, so beyond that, the gates on the outside of the 8 points leading in are secure, but Archaon wanted to do one better, as he understood that if he could get in theory, somebody else could too. So he constructed additional fortresses to be built on the inside of the realm. So there's a monumental fort and army stationing it on either side of each door. And this is why in the Realmgate Wars they just closed the All Gates rather than pouring into them and trying to retake this realm. They just wanted to shut the door because if you go in, you have to fight the same fight all over again and you're going in blind. And this is how Archaon secured the borders to his new home. And in addition to that, to cement his power, he constructed a grand fortress castle in the center of the realm, which he calls the Varanspire, around which is his kind of the city built around it is the Citadel of Ruin. Like most things in this story, it is an over-the-top, massive like defense structure with concentric rings at the bottom of it. And if you look at it from afar, it looks like a colossal sword stabbed into the ground, right? Think Sword in the Stone, except it is this impossibly tall tower. At the highest tip of the Varanspire is an ever-warping sphere. It's actually kind of a portal. Archaon's forces have so saturated this place with their malice and their evil that they tore open a hole straight to the realm of chaos. And so this way, if Archaon's army is ever on the move and they think we're going to need some reinforcements, they simply call out and a flood of demons will pour forth from that portal above the Varanspire to aid them. It is this like open hole in reality that has slowly warped the lands of the 8 points. What was once a beautiful home of gardens and wildlife has become ash wastes, sharp, craggy mountains, poisonous waters, and the wildlife has kind of mutated and twisted as well because this is the birthplace of the Raptorix, which we covered in the Slaves of Darkness series. All these things combined mean that the Varanspire is the epicenter of evil, a canker sore in reality and the seat of Archaon's power. And speaking of his seat, let's talk briefly about the throne. At the highest level within the tower is a grand throne room. On the walls are banners and skulls of kings and civilizations that were conquered. In the center sits a throne chair, of course. To create this seat, Archaon had his craftsmen crystallize and solidify the souls of every king who thought they could oppose him. Whoever thought they were grand enough to fight Archaon, he ripped out their souls and then turned into a physical thing. He solidified it. Then he formed a bunch of these together to make his throne, which I have to say is the most metal thing ever, right? You thought you could beat me? I'm going to take your head. I'm going to use it as a decoration. Your banner's going to go on my wall, and then I'm going to take your immortal soul and I'm going to use it as my throne. However, as cool as all that is, Archaon refuses to sit on this throne. He never has, and he promised to never sit there until he has successfully conquered the mortal realms. He has the coolest fortress in all of Warhammer, but refuses to claim it as his own until the job is done because he sees that there's still work to do. Now obviously he still goes to the varanspire. It is his kind of home base, if you will. It's just he doesn't sit on the throne. Now there's a few things I want to tack in here as we kind of wind down the end of this video, is that there is a realm stone of the 8 points. Realm stone being like the solidified magic that really represents the realm it's in. Here it is called Varanite, and it appears as, and I quote the book, red hot bubbling gore. The power and form of it is derived from the blood of so many people being shed and seeping into the land. This is the innocents they killed when they came in, and also just the fact that it is dangerous and most people die when they come to the 8 points. And rivers of this stuff, like veins in a body, run underground of the 8 points. With the proper techniques, it can be hardened and formed, making deadly weapons and artifacts. Beyond that, not much is really said about it, but I always wanted to point out the realm stone of each realm. And I wanted to end with what happened to this place when it was touched by the Necroquake. When I say touched by the Necroquake, this place was rocked hard, okay? Because remember, the Necroquake took place in Shyish, right? And they have a door that is just straight up connects to it, so they felt the impacts immensely. Towers were toppled in the devastation, many chaos lives ended in this madness, hordes of skeletons and night haunt rose up from the ground. Remember, there's all these like souls of people who were innocent and slain, and there's, you know, bodies everywhere. All of it rises up, and so they have this internal devastation going on. In addition to all of that, endless spells, because this place is so magic heavy, there's so many chaos sorcerers trying things, they go ballistic. And so I think in this book, Wrath of the Everchosen, they bring up like the gnashing maw popping up like twice, 2 or 3 times, something like that. There's purple suns floating around. It's just nuts. And all of this, like, it doesn't understate how devastating this was. This really did shake a lot of the comfort and security of the people there. Archaon wasn't at the 8 points at the time of the Necroquake. He was off doing something else, which we'll talk about later. But it did shake all of the confidence of the people there. And it was never going to be enough to break, you know, the grip that Chaos had. They have fully conquered this place. But it did jostle them in a big way that they hadn't felt in centuries. And I wanted to end there because of the events of the Necroquake bring us to the current time of the story that we're going to be exploring the rest of this week. Now I want to end this video like I end all of these. Why is this cool? One of the things I liked about this location and learning about its history in the Age of Myth, we knew that it was an important place for trade, but they didn't really harp on the fact that this was an unbridled place of good. Right, that society was happening here, and all the things that we value and treasure were happening in big ways, and life was sacred and taken care of. I absolutely love that. And this switch from unbridled good to unparalleled evil, I think, is very dramatic, where it turns from the brightest and best of what, you know, civilizations have to offer to being the worst of the worst, the perfect home for a villain, right? Mordor itself, if you're thinking like Lord of the Rings. Absolutely awesome. It's a grim setting with all kinds of environments, because it is just like a realm, but they're all like this evil shade of it. And you see that a bit in the Warcry anthology as they're walking through various, you know, open plains that are like deserts, and other ones are forests, but all the forests have trees that are trying to eat you and all this kind of thing. Along with that, talking about the Warcry anthology, I have to point out that this place does have cities, right? Karngrad is probably the biggest one that's mentioned in that series. And so the thing is that, you know, trade and life still happens. It's just now between these very dangerous people who would stab you just as quickly as, you know, bargain with you. And all of those things come together to make a very interesting location. How does society exist here? Obviously, it's all under the iron fist of Archaon. So I really enjoyed learning about it quite a bit, and I hope that you follow along the rest of this week as we start chatting about the events of Wrath of the Everchosen. Let me know what your favorite parts about this little realm is. It played a prominent role in the Realmgate Wars. There's some really cool stuff happening, especially with the All Gates on the other side of these doors, and I think that's a really cool staging ground for the opening acts of Age of Sigmar. So let me know down below. I'd love to hear about it, and I'll see you in tomorrow's episode.